Hello, everyone. We are going to get started here in about 30 seconds. Just want to say hello. We have a lot of people just joining now. It's right at the hour. Okay. Hi, my name is Lisa Collins, and I am with Benefitbay. As people are joining, I just want to go over a couple housekeeping items that always come up when we do webinars. We get the question, will you share the webinar? We certainly will share the webinar with you. We are also recording it, so we will share the recording as well. So we're going to spend the next 30 minutes or so. We're going to keep it at 30 minutes because we understand it's a really busy time of the year for you, and really do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. So our goal today is really to provide you with some new ideas that may help you manage some challenging renewals that you're dealing with, unfortunately, during this open enrollment season. We're going to talk about the power of using classes with ICHRAs. Now, some of you may have looked at ICHRAs, you're reviewing them, and you looked at the individual market costs versus the group insurance costs. But today we're going to take a deeper dive and look at the power of using these classes under ICHRA to really manage and create solutions for your clients. I would say almost without fail, we see that by using these classes, ICHRAs can meet both the employer and the employee objectives. So everyone's muted today. Like I said, we have a lot of people joining, but we do want to take your questions. Please, in the question area of your GoToWebinar panel, pose your questions. I will probably run out of time because there's a lot of content that we're going to go over today in a very short period of time. And a lot of these concepts are new, and we'll take some further discussions and, pose probably a lot of questions, but we do want to respond. So we're going to hang out after the 30 minutes, try to get to some of those questions. But if you don't have the time, we completely understand. We will respond to your questions. We will email you the response back to you, okay? So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. As a quick agenda overview, we're going to look at just high-level ICHRAs, make sure that we're all on the same page before we start talking about classes. We are going to take a pretty deep dive into how to use classes. We're going to talk about how to use classes for eligibility, and also how to use classes for bearing contributions. And then to help drive home these concepts, we're going to give you a couple client examples that we've recently worked with as they have involved the class. We're going to touch on the employee experience. That is critical to give a very positive experience to the employee. And then we're going to end with your broker tools that Benefitbay can provide to you, and also some ways to analyze your book of business to see if ICHRAs are a fit or not for some of your clients. What is ICHRA? I mean, I think at this point we've all heard about ICHRAs. There's the individual coverage HRAs that became effective January of 2020. You can use pre-tax dollars to buy individual medical and also ancillary insurance for the first time, January of 2020. We kind of lost 2020, and now 2021, we're really seeing a lot of activities with ICHRA. The good thing with ICHRA, unlike ICHRA, which was only available to small groups, ICHRA is available to both small and large groups. If you're working with small groups, we're going to show you how to use classes to be able to access government subsidies. And if you're working with a large group client, we're going to talk about affordability and meeting the ACA mandates with ICHRA using classes as well. When you're talking with your groups about ICHRA, it's important to mention that they can completely replace a group health plan with an ICHRA option, or they can keep the group health plan and class out a segment of their population and offer ICHRA to that particular class of employees. So you can have a hybrid or a full replacement. And then the plans that are eligible for this individual coverage ICHRA reimbursement are your individual market coverages on or off exchange, Medicare Part A and Part B, Part C, and also Medicare supplement plans, okay? So that's just kind of to level set everybody what we're talking about here, because brokers that are on this webinar, we have a varying degree. Some of you are just starting to work with ICHRAs, others have worked with ICHRAs for 2 years now, and you're really well versed and you're ready to continue on. Do want to note that the individual market on or off exchange, there are other policies that are not eligible under ICHRA. So your short-term plans or your limited benefit coverage, such as dental and vision, they don't meet the ICHRA requirements. Why ICHRA? So what's in it for the employee, the employer, and also you? For the employee, they can actually personalize their benefit plan. For the first time, they've got more choice than they've ever had before. Typically, an employer will provide a plan option or two, so they've got maybe 2 medical plans to choose from. But when you go on the individual market, there may be 8 plans, there may even be a dozen plans that they can choose from. So they can fit to their family needs a plan of their choice. And also, the benefits move from them. So it survives employment. It moves, that individual health insurance plan can move with them from job to job. So they don't have to restart a deductible because they were in a group health plan with one company and now they're in a new group health plan with another. Very advantageous, especially in certain industries where you have a lot of turnover or movement within the employee population. And the employees can also realize the savings and gain access to government subsidies that they would not have access to with the group health plan, or they wouldn't have access to if ICHRAs are affordable to everybody. And this is where we're going to talk about classes and how to really manage each plan or each employer's plan, ICHRA plan, to make it advantageous for everybody. And for the employer, it gets them out of the insurance business. Yes, you and I are in the insurance business, but they probably don't want to be in the insurance business. It provides long-term cost reduction for them. It is really a budget conversation. It's a fixed, predictable cost each year. Now, they may modify it each year, but for that year, it is predictable. There's no minimum participation requirements that you have with the group health plan. So if you've got a client that's experiencing participation issues, an ICHRA may be a very viable option. And the government subsidies that I talked about as an advantage on the employee side can also advantage the employer, reducing their ICHRA contributions. By offering ICHRAs, it also can reduce their day-to-day benefit administration as well. And there's no more of that guessing, trying to pick those best 2 medical plans to fit their entire employee population. It's no longer up to them. Now it's the employee's choice. So it gets them out of that guessing game. For you as a broker, why ICHRA? Also, there's some benefits to you. There's no annual renewals. I wish I could hear everybody because maybe I hear a sigh of relief there. It really is just a budget conversation each year. Your margins are favorably impacted. You reduce your administrative expense. You could actually reduce some of your administrative staff with ICHRA. The revenue survives employment, as I mentioned before. So these policies go with the employee, and the commissions could continue with you as well. So now you've got more of a direct relationship with the employee or the end users when you're working with ICHRAs, and it reduces the revenue churn. So this is where we're going to talk about the classing in 2 different areas. Classes can define eligibility. So who's eligible for ICHRA, who's not eligible for ICHRA, who's eligible for the group health plan, who's not eligible for the group health plan. And also classes can help define the contribution. You can vary the amounts under ICHRA, so the employer contribution to that individual market coverage that they choose based on the class. So before we began talking about the the different ways to do this, let's review what we're talking about when we say classes. There are several classes available. We have full-time, and full-time really is determined by the employer. So full-time, well, for small groups, they may want to define it as 40. 40 hours a week is full-time. But keep in mind, for that employer mandate for your applicable large employers, you still want to, offer affordable coverage under ICHRA so they don't have those penalties. Part-time can be less than 40, could be less than 30. Again, the employer defines what part-time means. Seasonal employees, maybe they haven't been eligible for the group health plan in the past. Seasonal employees are workers who are hired for a certain duration or a certain season. Maybe retail season, or retail, it's the holiday season, and for agriculture, it's the harvest season, as an example. Then we have a class of non-salaried. Usually that means hourly, but you also could consider 1099 workers as well. They can be eligible for the ICHRA plans. Salary, that's a given, right? Annual salary for the wages. And then we've got geographic location. So a rating area, a state, or a region. These classes that I have in, orange, salmon color, these are more of the common classes that we're seeing. But there's more classes as well. Non-resident aliens with no US-based income, so your foreign employees who work abroad. Waiting period also is a class. So think about the employees for a variable hour employee that's applicable large employer. They have, a lot of times I see measurement periods of 12 months, right? That's a pretty standard measurement period. So before they're eligible or potentially eligible for that group health plan, they're in this waiting period for 12 months. They could be eligible for an ICHRA plan. And for certain industries that are really having a hard time recruiting and retaining, this may be a really viable option. We've got collective bargaining agreements. The agreement between the union and an employer is also a class, and staffing firms. So temporary assignments, temp workers in a staffing firm are also a separate class. But then the last class is you can actually combine any of these classes together to create an additional class. And this is where you can get really creative and get a lot of flexibility and meet your client's needs. All right. Minimum class size. So if a group health plan is offered along with an ICHRA, so many times a company may keep a group health plan for a certain class of employees, and they class out another set of employees, I should say, and they're eligible for ICHRA. So if you're still offering a group health plan, these following classes, full-time, part-time, salaried, hourly, or they call it non-salaried, or geographic location, those classes will be subject to a minimum class size requirement. The minimum class size requirement is determined based on the employer size. So if an employer is under 100 employees, those minimum class is 10 employees, or that minimum class. If it's between 100 and 200 employees, it's 10% of the employee population. And if the client has over 200 employees, then that minimum class is 20 employees. So let's say you've got, you're classing out salaried and hourly. Salaried have the group health plan, hourly have the ICHRA plan. And you've got a company that has less than 100 employees. Well, that minimum class, ICHRA class, has to be 10 employees. So the hourly employee population has to be 10 employees. I do want to mention too, for the geographic location, if it's smaller than a state, that's when these minimum class sizes come into play. If it's an entire state, then the minimum class size requirements are not applicable. So a lot, to consider here. So before I go into the classes for the eligibility, to start really diving in to what to do with these classes, I do want to take a quick poll here. We'd like to see, the audience's opinions on certain things. So the first poll is, how are you, there's only two in the beginning, how are you engaged with ICHRA employee consultation? So how are you consulting your clients, or it could be prospects, with ICHRAs? Are you just getting your feet wet, just kind of learning about it? Have you written a few groups, or are you all in most of your groups you're identifying whether or not it's an ICHRA fit or not? All right, we've got about 60% who have voted. We do appreciate you voting. It helps us understand what, we can do to help you. Most of you are saying you're just getting your feet wet. So about 80% have answered just getting my feet wet, and about 20% of you have written a few groups. I did say in the beginning, we kind of lost a lot of, momentum in 2020 because everybody was preoccupied with other things. But I think if I were to ask you next year, we would see a huge increase because we have seen so much engagement today with this. It really is exciting to see the movement. Okay, so I'm going to close that out. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm going to do one more before we get into the details. And then you can kind of ask yourself the same question after and see, if your opinion has changed. Where do you find the best fit for ICHRA? When a group has carrier or network issues, when you're having to manage a difficult renewal, high increase, oh, my group wants out of the insurance business, they told me I'm done, no more, or low participation concerns. This may take a little bit more thought. You can also, yeah.
I don't know if you want to go ahead and address one question we have while you're waiting for the answers. One of the many questions we're getting a lot on so far is about Medicare people and if that is a class.
That's a great question. I wish I could say yes, but the answer is no. You can't class out just Medicare eligible or those enroll in Medicare. You may find, remember the slide that I have with all the classes, that a large population of Medicare eligible fall within a class, fall within an hourly class, fall within a certain state. So you could potentially get some of those covered by that, but you can't class out just on Medicare. Okay, we have about 70% who have voted, so we're really seeing that pretty evenly spread, managing renewal increases. My group wants out of the insurance business. I'm surprised that's at 42%. Managing renewal increases is at 45%. And then low participation concerns, 48%. So that's the highest, is the participation. The carrier and network issues is only coming in at 6%. So we're going to go ahead and close that out and really now start talking about how to use classes. We're going to start first with eligibility. So I want you to, this is going to be hard, but I want you to take off your group health insurance thinking cap. I mean, we've all worked in group health insurance for so long. Think of ICHRA as a funding vehicle. It allows the employer to help pay for that individual market coverage that the employee has chosen. But through the classing under ICHRA, the employer can determine who they're going to help with that premium cost and how much they're going to help them. Now, of course, with applicable large employer, they've got to consider affordability, right? So we've got some other issues to keep in mind, but generally they can use classing to determine the premium cost, who they're going to help, and how much. Okay, so anybody can purchase the individual market coverage, and the employer can offer premium assistance for that. So that it could include your full-time, your part-time, your seasonal, your 1099. So even those that could not have participated in the group health plan can participate in an ICHRA plan. Okay, so some of this may seem to fly in the face of the discrimination rules under the group health plans and what we're used to, but this is where we're here to help you through all that and kind of iron out the details. So for class eligibility, an ICHRA can fully replace a group health plan. terminate the group health plan and only offer ICHRA. ICHRA could be available for only a class of employees. Maybe you're only providing ICHRA for your salaried employees and no group health plan, or you could still maintain the group health plan and offer an ICHRA plan, and you can only do that by using classes. So one class could be eligible for only the group health plan. Another class could be eligible for only the ICHRA plan. It's important to note here that the employees don't have that choice, though. The employer sets up classes and provides that determination. So to give an example to help solidify that concept, we're going to look at the geographic location and a pay type. So you may have a company that has 2 different states. I use Virginia and Maryland here. The employees, the headquarter is in Virginia, and they're going to keep the group health plan that they've had for their headquartered employees. But their remote employees, happens to be, it could be any state, but their remote employees, they're going to offer the ICHRA. So remote employees in other states. Or they may decide that they're going to use the pay type. Salary employees are provided the group health plan, and hourly employees are provided the ICHRA plan. So you can start seeing here where you can really drive the results that the employer is looking for by using classes. We're going to move to classes for contributions, and this is where things get fun. So you can offer contributions to one class and not another, probably not as common as varying the contributions by class. The applicable large employer, though, ICHRA does meet the ACA mandates if the ICHRA contribution is affordable. So you want to make sure that you've structured your ICHRA contribution affordable so you're not setting your group up for these ACA penalties. And in small group, we are able through classing to make the ICHRA unaffordable. So the ICHRA contribution is unaffordable for a certain class of employees, which will allow them to waive out of ICHRA and access the subsidies. And we see this commonly for small group, hourly and salary. So salaried could be affordable, and hourly employees, for the most part, could be structured as unaffordable. And now those hourly employees typically make less money and probably have subsidies available. So you don't want to hurt the employee by offering an affordable ICHRA to everybody. You want to class out and make that hourly class ICHRA contribution unaffordable. They can still choose the ICHRA for their employer or the ICHRA amount the employer is making available, but they can't access the subsidies in that situation. Or they may waive out of the ICHRA and access the subsidies, and we're seeing many times those subsidies are larger than what the employer is making available under an ICHRA. You can also vary the contribution by age. So it's not really a class, but think about the individual market is age banded. That older person is paying a lot more than the younger person. So if we vary the contribution based on age bands, that provides more equal buying power. So higher allowances for older people, and the younger can't have more than the older. So if we're doing 10-year age bands, a younger age band can't get more than an older age band. You need to keep that 3-to-1 ratio in mind, that those non-discrimination rules. In this example here, circled in yellow, the youngest person receives 200. That means the oldest person can't exceed 600. Or if you have the 600 amount, you start there, the older employee has $600 in an ICHRA contribution, then the youngest person can't receive less than that $200. So that 3-to-1 ratio, keep in mind. You also can vary contributions based on the tier of coverage. So employee gets a certain amount, employee and spouse gets a different amount, employee and child a different amount, family and so forth. Okay, so contributions are based on classes, ages, and also tier of coverage. taking a little bit deeper dive with this classing and contributions. And this is where I say you got to kind of take off that group health insurance, mindset, because this can kind of seem a little strange, but for your salary employees, you can offer a greater contribution than your hourly employees if you want to, or it could be flipped. The full-time could have a greater contribution than the part-time employees. So part-time employees probably in the past didn't get anything, and now maybe they're part of the ICHRA plan and there is a smaller contribution for part-time employees. Or seasonal employees, you're only giving them a contribution during the season that they're working. Geographic location based on the benchmark plan for the area. It's amazing to see the difference of the cost from state to state. So you definitely want to use a class when you have different state locations. So again, that buying power is more equalized based on where they are working. So taking kind of those classes and combining them to show you how this all can play out together. You could have the Virginia salaried employee classification. So I've got 2 classes there, right? Geographic location and pay type. But then I can have a 5-year age band or a 10-year age band or a 1-year age band. It doesn't matter what the age bands are. I can vary the hourly to salary within the state from different age bands. The Maryland salaried employees could be a different age band than the Virginia salaried employees. So a lot of different variances here and play on what the census is going to drive how to class out employees. And the contributions based on the tiers, like I said before, factoring for that dependent coverage, varying the amount. Now you may say to me, there's no way that I can manage all this. This is like crazy. Sounds great in theory, right? I can probably design any kind of plan that I want, give them what they need, but trying to manage all the classes and the age bands and the contribution tiers, our software will do that for you. So don't let that steer you away from this whole concept of what can be done. So kind of just, get that out of your head that this is too much. The software easily accomplishes it for you. So let me kind of pull this all together, give you a couple examples of some groups that we've recently worked with brokers on to show you how this can all play out. All right, so we're going to start with the landscaping company. This landscaping company, it varies. They have between 90 to 120 employees depending on the time of the year. And they have salaried employees, their management. They have hourly employees, those that are working out in the field. And they have seasonal employees that they bring on during snowplow season. In the past, they haven't offered insurance because they were under they weren't considered an ALE. They were a small group, but they purchased another landscape company, and now they're over. And now they're an applicable large employer and have to offer insurance for the first time. But they're okay with that because they are struggling to recruit, and they're also struggling with that seasonal employee, like bringing people back and having that consistent seasonal base there. So the ICHRA solution, the 22 benefit solution, was offer an ICHRA to all employees. So no group health plan, they're just providing an ICHRA to everyone. But they're giving the salaried, so the crew managers, they're giving those salaried employees more of a contribution, and the hourly employees are getting less. But the hourly employees tended to be on the younger side anyways. So it played out nicely for this population. And then for the seasonal employees, they're getting what the hourly employee contribution is only when they're working during that season. So that's one example. Another example, and home health care, we're actually getting a lot of these. Home health care is really challenging for ACA. So if you've got clients in any kind of healthcare setting, ICHRAs could be a very viable solution. So this is an applicable large employer, 175 employees. They have aides, nursing aides in many different states. I think it was like 5 different states. They also have salaried and hourly. So they've got a headquarters. Their management are all in one location in an office, happened to be Pennsylvania. And the aides work remotely with the kind of the states around the Pennsylvania area, like Virginia and Delaware and so forth. I think there, again, was 5 of them or so. In the past, they've used a MEC plan to meet, you know, the ACA mandates and not have those stiff penalties. But for renewal season, now that ICHRAs are available, they're replacing the MEC with an ICHRA for their remote aides, so the people in the other states. And they are having a group health plan in the headquarters for the employees, because they're not going to be faced with any kind of participation issues by doing that. So group health plan and an ICHRA, classing out by location for this particular group. And then restaurants, small employer, 40 employees. They have only a few salaried employees, which are the managers, and the hourly employees, which are the wait staffs and the cook and so forth. They do have a group health plan, but they struggle the past couple of renewals because of their participation. They have really low participation, primarily because the hourly employees, you know, can't afford it, don't need it, and they're facing a large renewal, and they can't change the carriers. They're stuck because of their participation. So what they're doing is they are structuring it between salary and hourly, and they are making sure that the salaried employees have a contribution that's affordable. They're accessing the ICHRA employer dollars, helping pay for that individual market coverage premium. And for the hourly employees, they paid special attention to make it unaffordable for most of those employees, to allow those employees to waive ICHRA, opening up the access to the government subsidies. And the subsidies are pretty extensive. I mean, with this, the subsidy expansion, I'm kind of surprised sometimes to see how much subsidies are there. So now they've got the best of, you know, all worlds. They don't need to worry about low participation because they don't have the group health plan. They're going to an ICHRA, full replacement. But there's still the ICHRA plan helping the salaried employees pay for their premium, and then the hourlies, in most cases, can access the government subsidies. So I know that's a lot there, and your head may be spinning a little bit, but as I mentioned, we've got software to help with this. So I'm going to give you a very quick, I'm not going to dive into the details, but this is a large group. This is something we modeled in the software. And this default plan is the baseline affordability. Okay, so 55 employees, applicable large employer, based on location and the salary and so forth. The default baseline affordability came in at $49,000. Once we classed out using state, pay type of salary and hourly, and also the age banding, which is important, it actually, look at this, the employer contribution for affordability is I'll call it $21,000 instead of $49,000, simply by classing. And these are real live numbers with the group that we worked with. So here's a small group example where we're looking at what we call subsidy advantage. So it's our tool online to identify subsidy. Default baseline for 22 employees is $12,000. Then we went to classing. We classed salary and hourly, and that looked pretty good, $7,500. But then with the government subsidy, so making the hourly class unaffordable, it opened up almost $5,700 in subsidies, and the employer amount dramatically reduced. I mean, look at that. The numbers are just sometimes pretty astounding. So classing, affordability, unaffordability, you know, many times where you thought it was not an ICHRA fit, absolutely is a very good ICHRA fit. So we went not just looking at the individual market as a whole, and it's more expensive than the group market. We're taking this software and we're taking a deeper dive and classing and coming up with real solutions. So employee experience is going to be very important here. If the employees aren't happy, employer hears about it, you'll hear about it, we'll hear about it. So in the traditional ICHRA model, the employee goes out, they purchase their individual market coverage on their own, on the marketplace, on or off exchange, with their own money. They're required each month to submit a reimbursement request, so submit a claim. And they also have to provide an attestation saying they have this individual market coverage. And then they wait for the reimbursement of their employer's ICHRA amount. For many employees, this is a financial hardship. They live paycheck to paycheck and they simply can't afford that monthly premium, especially when you start adding dependents. So you see the participation from the group health plan that was terminated to the ICHRA significantly drop. So we have solved for that, and we're providing a banking solution. It's not a debit card because a lot of carriers don't accept debit cards. The employee will still go out on the market, whether it's on or off exchange, purchase the plan that they best fit their needs, okay? But in our enrollment tool, it presents a checking account number that is actually funded by the employer. They no longer have to send in the monthly reimbursement because they've got that checking account that they can pay for the premium every single month with their employer dollars, or they can set up an ACH. That's probably most practical if the carrier allows for that, and they don't have to even do that each month, pay the premium each month. So there's no monthly attestation because we get a report back, you know, if they're covered or not, so that provides for the attestation, and there's no reimbursement because they're using our advanced reimbursement checking account. Now the balance, what the employee purchased, the individual market coverage, and what the difference between that and what the ICHRA amount the employer is providing, or the subsidy amount, so that's the employee responsibility. That difference can be taken through a payroll deduction. If the plan was purchased on exchange, it's post-tax. If it was purchased off exchange, it can be pre-tax, saving payroll dollars for both, or payroll taxes, saving money for both the employee and the employer. So what a win-win, right, for everybody. All right. So that our model, or Benefitbay model, with this advanced reimbursement checking feels just like the group plan. The employer is paying that monthly premium, and then through a payroll deduction, they're collecting the employee's portion, just like they were doing before they terminated the group health plan. So we're going to end with some best practices. Before I go to that, I want to ask you, and you know, how, and this is a poll question, how can we help you? This is new. We've gone over a lot. Each group is like a new experience. There's so much information gathered from actually living this and going through this. So we're here to help you, and we want to know where you need help. Do you need more employer materials to help have the ICHRA conversation? You don't know how to really talk to them yet about ICHRAs because it's brand new. It's a new subject for everybody. Do you need more technical knowledge, how to really set up these ICHRA plans, more, you know, the classing and the compliance? You know, what do you have to do to comply with ICHRA? More employer examples. Give me real life examples to help understand, so I can really look at my book of business and identify my clients that are very similar that I can also do the same thing for. Contact me. You've completely confused me today, Lisa. I have no idea what you just said, because again, I know I said a lot in a very short period of time. We're happy to go over all the details. You may only have one little question and we can answer that quickly for you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close that out. I appreciate you answering those questions, and we're going to just kind of wrap up with how to look at your book of business. So evaluating your business, as I said, in the past, we've talked to brokers and they've looked at, well, my individual market, it's awful. The choices are not good. The cost is really expensive. The group market is cheaper than the individual. That's a real superficial look. And there are, there's companies out there that are going direct to employers with this conversation. We even have some brokers tell us that their accountants talk to their groups about it and tell me about this ICHRA. So the best place to start is looking at your groups at risk. What groups are you dealing with that have really high renewals? Maybe they're in a level funded plan and one or two claimants is really driving up that renewal. They have low participation. Carriers threatening to terminate, or you can't move to another carrier. There's network or carrier issues because for the first time they've had remote employees that they never had before, and they're with a regional carrier, or the employer wants out of the insurance business. So kind of those questions that I asked at the beginning with those poll questions. So your groups at risk, I would absolutely talk to them about ICHRA. And for all small groups, because you can allow that access to the subsidies for a class of employees, I would absolutely run all small groups through our software. And then targeted industries. So I've had recently a couple really good conversations with brokers about they're expanding their relationships with their prospecting they're using ICHRA for prospecting, can't get that out, but they've targeted certain industries in their prospecting efforts. Restaurants, hospitality, retail, construction, landscaping, healthcare, manufacturing, delivery services, professional services, nonprofit, and actually tech industries too. These industries we are finding are most likely to be a good fit for ICHRAs. Now, not everybody's a fit for ICHRAs, we understand that. And maybe your client just does not want to move from the group health plan to an individual market coverage type of an arrangement. That could quite possibly be the case, even though the numbers look great. But if they're open to looking at the individual coverage, you've got a lot to do to play with here to make it the flexibility based on the classes. Targeting these industries is a really good way to not only retain your clients, but also to grow your book of business. So with that, we're going to end the webinar. Here's ways to reach us if you don't want us reaching out to you, info@benefitbay.com. There's our website. We will, though, be sending by email the recording and also the PowerPoint presentation. And I did run over. I thought I could do it in a shorter period of time, but didn't quite do it. So any of the questions, we will respond to you at a later time because I ran a little bit over more than I thought, but we will definitely get back to you with the questions that you have. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.